welcome to another CeltsAreHere audio podcast. I am Craig, the editor of CeltsAreHere.com, and because we've got a little bit of time this morning, I thought I would do a bit of a match reaction from the Dundee game on Sunday, where Celtic managed to eke out a 2-1 win on the day to put themselves within 4 games of winning the SPFL title. As I think I said in last week's introduction to the Joe Hart interview, there was going to be no easy games at this point, and most games would kind of be edge of your seat stuff, just like the Aberdeen semi-final was. The Dundee game turned out to be the case. Again, Celtic did take the lead. James Forrest with a brilliant goal, taking on the volley from, we'll say an assist from Kyogo, but I think it was a really bad touch from him, and Forrest was there just to bang it in, and that settled the nerves, and you're thinking from there Celtic will go on and win the game, which they did, but as we've seen, it wasn't all plain sailing. We get the second goal, and the relief's there, the crowd's singing a bit louder. Anybody watching back home, you can kind of exhale a little bit, even though you know one goal kind of puts the cat amongst the pigeons again. And as in true Celtic style, what happened was we went to clear a corner. Maeda has swiped at the ball and put the ball into the back of the net. Joe Hart with no chance to save it, and the game goes back into the melting pot. At that point, anxiety levels go through the roof, and you're just thinking, oh, here we go, we're going to concede another, we're going to drop points here, and points we can't really afford to drop before the Glasgow derby. But luckily enough, we've seen the game out. And I have to say all credit to Dundee, because they did give us a game. I think Tony Docherty said after the match, I've not checked the stat, but apparently they took the most shots into his, I don't know, the most shots on target of any club this season against Celtic in the SPFL. I think they're a really, really good team. He's done well with them this season. They've definitely earned their top 6 status, that's for sure. But Sunday was all about the result for Celtic, and they got the result. I tweeted out on my account at Craig Celt that doesn't matter at this stage how you win as long as you win, because as far as Celtic are concerned, win all your games and you are the champions. I thought on Sunday Brendan Rodgers got his team absolutely correct. James Forrest had to come in after his semi-final exploits, where he came on after 2 minutes against Aberdeen and scored a goal, and just kind of looked a bit of a live wire on the wing compared to Yang, who was absolutely dreadful in that game. So I didn't expect to see Yang on the field at all, which he didn't get any game time. Then there was Luis Palma, who again I think is just, I don't think he's good enough for Celtic, if I'm honest. Yes, he shows kind of flashes of what he can do. He can hit a ball, and he's had a good few assists as well this season, but a lot of the time he's not contributing much, and his decision making is suspect. I had a few people get on at me on Twitter because after the game I kind of pointed out that with a couple of minutes to go, Luis Palma's decided to take a shot from outside the box. Yes, it is opened up for him a bit, but when we're 2-1 up, we're trying to see the game out. Is that the best time to do that? Yes, we want to see amazing goals. Yes, we want the game to be wrapped up, but at the same time, if you're going to relinquish possession like that, the in-game management there is terrible, and the decision making is terrible. You're kind of going into business for yourself as far as I'm concerned. I know a lot of people disagree with that. Again, on Twitter, people are saying he needs to shoot and hopefully he scores. He didn't, and you can't really castigate him for it. I beg to differ. I think if you look at the Aberdeen game especially, our in-game management and holding on to the ball in pivotal moments just before we conceded twice, once in 90 minutes, another one in extra time, we just didn't keep a hold of the ball as well as we should have. So the Dundee game, I felt like we were making the bad decisions again. Maeda, there was one after that where he's tried to play in Luis Palma, and I think again that's fair game, because if you've got possession and you eke out a chance that's actually like a good chance of putting in the back of the net, then of course like roll the dice then. But outside the box, 3 minutes to go, what is the point in taking that shot? Hold possession, try and work a better chance, and hopefully you score. If you don't, you've got the ball and the opposition can't score. So that's my rant about Luis Palma. I don't think he's going to make a big impact at Celtic beyond this season. I also don't see Celtic getting rid of him for next season, because we've put a decent amount of money into him, so he could be a squad player until such times as he decides he doesn't want to be a squad player. But I do expect Brendan Rodgers, Celtic and the scouting team to look at the wing situation in the summer and actually bring in some players who can be more effective. But that brings me on to James Forrest. Now, who had James Forrest saving the day on their bingo card when it comes to the title? He's came on, first start since November, scored 2 goals, one is the game, and with 4 games to go, we're in the driver's seat. He's playing like a guy who's been sitting on the sidelines itching to go on for the whole season. I'm going to be honest and say it, I wrote him off. I thought he might have been away in January, and the rumours were that he was allowed to leave in January if a move came up. I think a few things did come up, but James wanted to stay. And right now we're all thankful that he has, because without Daizen and Maeda in that team to kind of help drive us forward and defend from the front, Luis Palma and Yang are just not good enough right now. Maybe they will be in the future, I don't know. For me, I don't think they will be, but those two options they don't scream title winning players to me. Now I could end up with egg in my face as Jimmy Forrest picks up an injury and Yang comes on and scores a worldie, or Luis Palma does the same, but I think James Forrest is the best option if Daizen Maeda is out. With Daizen about to come back from injury, as Brendan Rodgers said last week, then you've got the dilemma of, do you start James Forrest or do you start Maeda? For me, I would still start Maeda, but you would have James Forrest to come on for the last 20 minutes, half an hour, and that's either on the right hand side or the left hand side, depending on what we're leading and what's kind of happening in the game. It would be nice to see James continue to get amongst the goals and assists in the last 4 games to kind of solidify his contributions to this league, which is by no means a foregone conclusion at this point. The ideal scenario would be for James to contribute a bit more, help Celtic win the title, and then maybe ride off into the sunset in the summer. But we'll see what happens. Away from James Forrest, I thought the second half Celtic had was poor. Again, we can't seem to keep any sort of tempo. Dundee got in our faces, kind of pressed us a bit more physical, obviously bigger guys. The midfield seemed non-existent for the first 15 minutes of the second half. Callum McGregor looks unfit. We really allowed Dundee to kind of impose themselves on us, and they looked like scoring before we actually got the second goal. Thankfully we did, obviously, because they did finally get their goal. And it's just a warning there, we need to control the midfield. We've got Callum McGregor, Matt O'Reilly and Rio Hatate. There's no reason why we shouldn't be controlling the midfield against any team in the SPFL. It does say to me that Callum McGregor's either unfit or just off form. Either way, that is an issue going into the next 2 games against Hearts and Rangers. Callum fully fit and fully on form is one of the first players you put down on the starting 11. Right now, he just seems a bit off it, and that does concern me. I just hope that he comes good in the next 2 games. Matt O'Reilly, he does look a wee bit fatigued. He has played most of the season. He had a great first half of the season. He's had a more subdued second half, but his quality in the team is always there. Like, he can give you a wee flash here and there. He's scored some great goals, he's made some great assists, and he's just contributed to overall play. But again, even he struggled in the second half to get into the game. We know Hearts and Rangers are going to come at us. We know Hearts, especially at Celtic Park, they've already beat us this season, that they're going to get in our faces. They're going to try and spook us. Any kind of goal early on for Hearts, or even if it's 0-0 at half time, Hearts know that's all they'll need to kind of have the Celtic fans on the players' backs and anxious and nervous because of the situation. So it's incumbent on Celtic to make sure they come out the box firing against Hearts and just kind of impose our will on them. Don't let them overrun us in midfield. And if Callum McGregor is starting, Brendan Rodgers better be sure that he's up for the task. We don't want to be sitting here in 4 weeks going, oh, maybe we should have started Awata in those games. I thought Tomoki came on Sunday and it was effective. Like, I've had an argument again with people online. That's all I have is arguments. But with debate that some people are saying Tomoki wasn't that good when he came on. I thought he kind of helped bring the flow back into the midfield, tilt the scales in Celtic's favour. So in that way I can't really fault him. Yes, he could do more probably in the attacking side of things, but I thought he did a better job than Callum had. That's not to say Tomoki isn't capable of having a howler here and there. At Tynecastle he was guilty several times of getting caught in the ball and just having the ball taken off him, so that's something if he plays against Hearts we'll have to watch, or again we could be in trouble. As you can probably hear from my kind of ramblings, I don't have any notes in these podcasts. I genuinely put the mic in front of me and start talking. Oh, and I want to mention Joe Hart as well for his time wasting. Now, I didn't actually see the time wasting, I didn't see what he was doing, but it was clear he was trying to time waste towards the end of the game. Not something Joe's used to. We're used to other goalkeepers time wasting. At Celtic Park sometimes I see goalkeepers and you count and it's about 25 to 30 seconds between the ball going out of play and then the goal kick being taken. Referees rarely punish these goalkeepers at Celtic Park. They'll maybe get a come on, move, hurry up kind of thing. They'll get a talking to, but rarely does a booking come out. I was surprised to see the booking come out from John Beaton when Hart did get the yellow card. I wrote on Twitter that it was a bit laughable considering Celtic have it done to them week in, week out, and nothing gets done about it. Some people did correct me on that Joe kind of punched the ball into the crowd and then was just trying to, like, obviously overtly time waste rather than what the other goalkeepers do, is like taking the ball from one side of the 6-yard box to the other and things like that. So he probably deserved his yellow card, but I want to make the wider point that the referees really need to get a grip of that when it comes to Celtic games. Yes, these teams are trying to gain an advantage and just like trying to slow the game down and run down the clock as much as possible when the game's at 0-0. It needs to be stamped out. For instance, we know that if Craig Gordon's in goals for Hearts on Saturday, that he's going to hold on to the ball as much as possible. He knows it. He's played the game. He's played for Hearts against Celtic at Celtic Park. He's been the Celtic goalkeeper and watched it at the other end. It's all about running down the clock and playing that last 20 minutes, half an hour of football in the second half where everything's to play for if it's still 0-0. But I don't hold out much hope that any goalkeeper's going to get booked at Celtic Park, apart from maybe Joe Hart again if Celtic are holding on to a lead. Speaking of Craig Gordon playing for Hearts, I remember years and years ago, obviously before he came to Celtic, he was in goals for Hearts in a game in November, I think it was, maybe December. This was going back when Gordon Strachan was in charge of Celtic. Celtic were 1-0 down with about 20 minutes to go. I think we scored one late on and we were looking for the second, and we've put the ball into the box, and I think it might have been, again, I should really look this up before I start spouting it on a podcast, but I think Gary Caldwell's kind of swiped at the ball to kick it into the net. It's kind of came up, flicked up on Gordon, and Gordon's went to catch it facing his goal. Instead of catching it, he's punched it into his own net, and effectively that night I think Paddy Power paid out in Celtic to win the league, because I think Rangers were that far behind and Hearts were our nearest challengers at the time, that I think Paddy Power is obviously a publicity stunt, paid out on Celtic winning the league. So if Craig Gordon wants to punt the ball into his own net on Saturday, like, by all means, please do us a wee favour. But ever the professional, I think he's definitely going to try and stop Celtic from winning the game and effectively throwing the title race like wide open again. We know Craig is a professional. We know he's had some run-ins with Celtic since leaving. Edward with the Panenka and an empty Hampden comes to mind when he actually shouted at Scott Brown because Edward had embarrassed him by doing the Panenka. He thought that was a bit cheeky maybe, or disrespectful from a former teammate. But it's clear for Celtic, they don't need to win the next two games, but if they win the next two games, they are effectively the champions of Scotland. With 2 games remaining after that, it would take an almighty collapse for anything to stand in Celtic's way, obviously in goal difference. But we'll go for the old cliche, 1 game at a time, and Hearts is up next, and that's all we can focus on, nothing else. We need to win that game, and then we know we go into the Glasgow Derby. If we win, then we are the champions. If we lose, all is not lost. If we draw, we'll take it to obviously Kilmarnock away, which gives everybody a bit of the GBs. So it's interesting times. So obviously we would like the league to be wrapped up by now, but form this season hasn't dictated that. We had a collapse in the middle of the season. We've had to kind of work hard to make sure we've been in the fight, and at one point Rangers thought they were out and out favourites for the title, so we've brought it back. We're 3 points ahead right now. That could evaporate very quickly if we put in a poor performance against Hearts. So it's just all about focus now, getting over the line, and hopefully having another party. Anyway, I try and make these short and sweet because it is just me talking. If you do enjoy it, subscribe to our Spotify or Apple, leave a review or whatever, or tweet me on @CraigCelt if you want to give me any feedback. Tell me I'm talking nonsense, or tell me I'm amazing, which I don't expect to happen, but you never know. So roll on Saturday, and hopefully when I speak to you again, maybe next Monday, we're talking about going into the Glasgow Derby with high hope. So catch you on the next one.